Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to KUKA and welcome to my session and my presentation about robots which are being used in medical applications and in specific KUKA's bigger robots. I'm very happy that you are here, that you have the time to join and to listen. My name is Andreas Keibel and I'm the Business Development Manager for Medical and Healthcare Robotics. So what's the presentation about? I would like to start with a picture of a lot of medical robots to give you a feeling about medical robotics where it is now. And then I want to dig a little deeper into the bigger robots we have and where they are used so far. So medical robots, if you hear this, a lot of people think it's a new topic. It's a big sensation to use robots in the medical field. But actually, there are a lot of medical robots available right now. Here on this slide, you see only a fraction of the robots which are available right now. You can buy it and they are being used in the hospitals. And so why is that so? That's a good question. A lot of people think that the robots are, if the robots are better doctors or as the doctors and can replace the doctors, but the truth is that the robots are not better than the doctors, but they support the doctors in doing their jobs. So, and why is that so? So the doctors use the robots because the robots can support them in their tasks. And this is, for example, because the robots, they have drives, motors, and the motors have encoders. And if you know the position of the encoders, then you know the position of the tooltip. So the robot basically knows where his tooltip is in space. So basically knowing this X, Y, Z coordinate and the orientation. A doctor doesn't have encoders in his arms, so I don't have, and no human knows exactly the position of his arm in space. This can be used for interventions where you have a predefined geometric path. So for example, if you have an intervention where you can base on image acquired data, for example, from CT or MR, and that you can carry out a specific motion, which you can predetermine and compute before the intervention starts. So there's a big advantage for the robots in this case, if you have a geometric precision you need. And robots are pretty stiff and they are strong. This makes it predestinated that the robots carry heavy equipment, for example, therapy equipment or heavy instruments, or even patients. And they are strong, and normally if you have a specific process force during an intervention, maybe in orthopedics, the human hand gives way while the robot can be much stiffer and keep its path. Robots are machines, no questions, and machines normally they can't become sick and become ill, and especially they are resistant to radiation. Yeah, to a specific extent, of course, to a certain degree, but robots can stay in X-ray radiation while the doctor possibly has to commute between the patient and behind the shield to carry out a specific radiotherapeutic intervention. Robots, they can move very smoothly and very slowly to do something, and they are not shaking if they are not programmed to shake. This is also an advantage, possibly for teleoperations. A lot of medical robots are based on this effect that a telemanipulated robot can move much smoother than the robot's hand, and the robot's precision is very high. You can work on a very small Zetus, while the teleoperated input device has a much bigger workspace. Yeah, and the availability of robots is also very high. They can work 24 hours without becoming tired or without asking for vacations. So this led us to the point where companies were asking us if our robots can be used in the medical field. This started, to be honest, 20 years ago. Around 20 years ago, there was a company, Accuray, who was asking for a robot to be used in X-ray therapy equipment. And also, in the domain of positioning imaging equipment, you can see here the ARTRIS Pheno system is a use case to use big robots for, or patient positioning systems like we can see here. It's a system from the company BEC, or here you have an X-ray treatment system or a treatment system from Best Theratronics. Here's Accuray, and our smaller robots can handle smaller loads like instruments, or even can be used for rehabilitation purposes if the robots are attached to the limbs of a human, because in rehabilitation intensity matters, but no therapist is able to move the leg of a patient for many hours. So let's go into this in a little more detail with some examples where KUKA robots are inside right now. I dropped the name of the Accuray company, which have invented the CyberKnife. And the CyberKnife is a high-intensified X-ray therapy system where out of the nozzle of a linear accelerator comes a sharp X-ray beam. And this X-ray beam, as I can like to show here, goes through the entire, is placed in a way that it goes through a tumor. And the X-ray treats the entire tissue where it passes through. The tissue has a specific absorption rate, and related to the absorption rate, the penetration of the tissue is stronger or weaker. And the therapy has the approach that the doses of the X-ray delivery to the tissue only accumulates in the tumor to the lethal doses of the tissue. So this means the robot spins and moves around the tumor so that only the lethal doses is applied to the tumor, while the rest is below a certain treatment intensity so that the tissue can survive it and stays healthy. Here, the robot very often is 2 meters away from the patient, which needs a very high precision in the orientation. Not only the translational XYZ positioning, but also the orientation is very important. You can check this if you try to hit a fly on a wall. If you shake a very little, then you will miss it definitely. And the same is here, because the beam is very sharp and you have big distances and you want to treat only the tumor and not tissue which is around the tumor. And they ended up with a KUKA robot. We are very proud about this, that we have so high accurate robots which can be used for these reasons. So this was very heavy equipment, the LINAC, the linear accelerator, which finally generates a sharp X-ray beam. Another use case where our robots are famous to be used is patient positioning, specifically in the use case of heavy ion and proton and neutron therapy centers. The most famous thing is the Heidelberg Ion Therapy Center. I will come to this later. We have a patient positioning system which is also available from Accuray in combination with the CyberKnife. So it's not heavy ion proton, but it's also patient positioning, but in X-ray photon therapy. There's an Optivus system, it's a proton therapy center. And the newest thing which has been set up with heavy ion proton is MidAustron Center in Vienna. Here, ceiling-mounted robots carrying the patient like on a tray, like on the table. And attached to the couch is an X-ray system which can travel along the patient bed, a very clever approach from MadePhoton. And the robot is, and the complete setup was designed by the company BEC. Another thing is the boron neutron capture therapies. This is new. This has been rediscovered some years ago, and there's one center in Helsinki, but also in Asia. Some are coming up. This center is working in the way that neutrons are shot to the patient's tumor. And neutrons, normally, they don't have interaction with normal tissues. They just pass through if they have a certain energy. But if the tumor is enriched with bohr, the Bohr atom, then this Bohr captures the neutrons, and then the atomic physical reaction takes place. which results in the lethal doses for the tumor. And to bring the boron into the tumor, this is done in a way that the boron is coupled to the sugar molecules or under other attractors, which are accumulated then in the tumors. And not to forget to mention, which is a very interesting thing for me, because I had the idea many years ago to place a robot into an MR room. You always hear that this is not possible because a robot is of iron, made of iron, and you can't place iron into an MR room. You see warning plates in front of each MR room, but the Polytechnic in Montreal, they just did it, and this works because of the robot isn't too close to the gradient of the field of the MR magnets. So the robot is pretty much outside of the strong forces, and if it approaches the tubes, then the forces increase, but the robot just counter forces it with its drives. So this is very, very interesting because you can do many interventions now with a robot in the MR. So this robot here, I want to come to it now. This is in the Heidelberg Ion Therapy Center or in the Siemens SPHIC, the Heavy Ion Proton Therapy Center, Cancer Center in Shanghai and also in Marburg. Here we have a ceiling-mounted imaging robot consisting of a C-arm with an X-ray detector and an X-ray emitter to verify the position of the patient and the tumor before the beam is switched on, and the patient positioning robot on the ground. And I'm happy that we are in the medical showroom here in Augsburg, where exactly this robot is placed, and I can go over to it right now. Here you can see the system. It is mounted on the floor. In Mid-Austron, we have a ceiling-mounted robot, but this robot is mounted on the floor. And attached to the robot is a carbon fiber couch. And it's carbon fiber because this is only a nice material. It is because it's translucent to X-ray. And before the patient can be placed into the particle beam, you need a verification, the geometric verification of where the tumor is really in space with X, Y, Z coordinates. And then to adjust the patient to the nozzle where the beam comes out of the accelerator. And the patient enters a treatment room, which is often not so big. And the patients often have no idea what is necessary to generate such a beam of particles. And the newest center in Mid-Austron, they asked the guys from the CERN. The CERN is they made the LHC, the Large Hadron Collider, to find the Higgs boson. And this synchrotron accelerator accelerates the particles. It's choosable between protons, so hydrogen core or oxygen core or carbon core, accelerates this to relativistic speeds. So they are really approaching the speed of light. And then depending on the specific speed, you can adjust the treatment depth of the beam. So if it's faster, then the penetration is deeper. And the great thing of particle therapy is that after the treatment depth, there's no other treatment of tissue. So we have a treatment depth, and at the end of this depth, there's a maximum interaction of particles of the beam with the tissue, and this tissue is wanted to be just only the tumor, and then the tumor is dissolved by the physical reaction between the relativistic fast particles, and the tissue itself. This makes this predestinated for brain tumors because nobody is happy if he needs to open a brain of a patient. But with this therapy, it's possible without opening the brain and just placing the patient into the beam. But it's not cheap. It's very expensive because the treatment center is expensive. If you need technology which is available in the CERN for a treatment, you can imagine this is not just a passing by therapy. Yeah. The next thing where big robots is famous to be used is a system which is available from Siemens. And Siemens, they invented the ARTIS Zigo, and now they are in the next generation, which is available. This is the ARTIS Pheno system from Siemens Healthineers. This is an intervention system, and it is used for basically heart catheter intervention for revascularization of the vessels of the heart. So speaking in more easy language, it helps the doctors to implant a stent into clogged vessels. And this works in the way that the robot holds a C-arm. The C-arm has at its tips has an X-ray source and an X-ray panel as a detector, as a 2D sensor, and the sensor can detect the radiation which hits the panel, like in a normal fluoroscopy sensor, and the robot can move this system around the patient and shooting a lot of images while moving in a CT manner. And the software from Siemens then can compose these hundreds of 2D images to a 3D image. And this is outstanding for the doctor who wants to move through a 3D body of the patient. The catheter is often inserted in the veins or the arteria of the leg. And then he has to travel through the entire body, right to the position of the heart. And this is a 3D map. Yeah. Some people might get lost in the traffic and need a navigation system when driving with a car, but this is much more complex. We have so many turns you can take and get wrong. And having a 3D image in this scenario is an outstanding increase in economy and in safety and in quality of this treatment and in this principle. And if something isn't working or isn't so clear with fluoroscopy, the patient doesn't need to be sent to the CT rooms of the hospital and come back later half an hour. So in the middle of the intervention. With this system, you have the OR and the imaging in one room. And this combination of these two is called hybrid OR. Also, the Uniclinic of Augsburg, where we are, they have this system installed. So very interesting. And I'm standing right below such a mock-up of this system. This is a KR Quantec 300 robot from KUKA. I'm almost 2 meters tall. And you see the robot is even taller and it's a very strong robot. Here's the C-arm without any hulls with the X-ray source and the X-ray detector, 2D detector. And the robot can move this around the patient. We will see this in a short time, in a few seconds. Yes. Let's see it moving. So what you see here is a motion we call robot team. Robot team is a coordinated motion between two robots, and where one robot tells the other robot where he is and where he is going to. So, and here you can see the patient positioning robot moving while the imaging system is doing his task on the moving base. So this is maybe not of medical use right now, but maybe in the future, and is more a technical demonstration. So the patient positioning robot tells the other robot, the imaging robot, where he is and where he's going to, while the imaging robot can keep the position like you can see here now, or can do any task he likes. So in some seconds, you see the spinning motion of the robot, which goes around the patient. So now let's go to the other use cases. Here you see a slide with a horse and people, doing something around. And these guys, there are 4 of the people are helping personnel, while one person is a patient. And this patient had a stroke, and the stroke has, killed brain tissue. So this patient was not able to sit anymore, because there was a disconnection between the vessels of the gait and the brain. And since centuries, it's well known that the so-called hippotherapy can help the patients. And it has a positive impact on some patients, not all, but but it's a quite good outcome statistically. And why is that so? We know this since a much shorter time, why and how this works, and this is related to the so-called neuroplasticity. And this works in the way that healthy tissue, which wasn't affected by the stroke, can take over control and reconnect to the nerves, which are still there, if the nerves are firing and stimulating. And this is done by physical stimulation of the patient, and in this case, the gait, or the entire patient, and the gait is moving from the horse's saddle, and the nerves are firing into the brain, and healthy tissue is kind of curious what's going on and reconnect to the electric impulses finally. And then with the ego of the patient and with a high intensity, this is really always necessary, the patient might have the chance to recover, that he can sit again, and only after he can sit, the idea is there that he may even be able to walk again. So, but there's implications of hygienical manner. Having a horse's shed next to a neuroclinics, because of a lot of germs being commuted back and forth with the people and the staff going and the patients going through the shed, coming back with the patient and so on, that there was a company, Intelligent Motion from Austria, who said, well, if it's just about the stimulation and if a horse is great since centuries, let's do it in a robotic way, in a robotic manner. So here's a patient sitting on the hippotherapy robot, the so-called HiRob, and the motion of the saddle is exactly this what a horse does, because this is medically proven and it's a great medical outcome. However, you can adjust the motion in the amplitude and the swinging and the speed, also to lock, coordinate, or you can even be able to put any other motion into this device. So if you have questions to this robot, you are welcome to ask me or Intelligent Motion, because I find it very interesting. Put the robot into the clinics is not a problem. Even more of them, no problem, with this great outcome of the hippotherapy. So from the rehabilitation is only a small step to sports and to orthopedics. We were asked by the German Sports High School if we have a robot which is able to withstand around 400 kilograms, because they want to have a sports device on one hand and a therapeutic device for arthroscopic patients. So the idea was that the patient presses his foot onto a sensitive plate, while the robot can withstand it, or in the sports idea, have a functional trajectory. For example, like a high jumper, he has a rotational spinning motion, and he can train his muscles if the robot does exactly this trajectory. It's a 6D trajectory to execute, and the sports guy can train it, even in extensive motion. So the robot approaches the patient while he's pushing, just the other way around, like in a gym. And another great idea, which is done at the German Sports High School and together with the RWTH Aachen and the IRT and Book Engineering and Consulting, is that they can reverse calculate the forces inside the knee. So you don't need to measure inside the knee and open it, but if you have a mathematical model of the knee, you can inverse calculate the forces which are applied to the inner and the outer compartment of the knee. And this is great for diagnostics of arthrosis and also for therapy. So the patient can have a specifically for him, ideally designed therapy. The company BEC was then, after this, ready to design and create the robot gym. So all the knowledge which was generated by the scientific project from the German Sports High School and the partners was used to make the robot gym. And here we have a little smaller robot. It's a Quantic Nano. I will drop some words about this robot later. All with this functional trajectory, with the extensive motion, and so on. So why is that all possible to do with industrial robots? And why has KUKA been asked to use the robots in medical field? I have to say that KUKA is not making medical products on its own. So we are a supplier of robotic technology, and our customers, they integrate the robots in their medical product. So we are not going to compete with our customers so that we say, you have a good idea, let's do it on our own. No, we are feeling to be in the role of being the supplier for robots. And I think from what I've experienced in the last years, very interesting is the absolute accurate model we can supply with our robots. Every device which is produced, specifically every complex machine, has some shortcomings which comes from the production, from the CNC milling process, regarding different environment temperatures and so on. But we can counter calculate them with the geometric model we have, and this needs to be calibrated with the set of measurements we can carry out optionally on any robot. So physically, it works in the way that the robot is taken out of the production and the robot is put into a laser-based measurement center, and the robot is doing a lot of motions while the motions are being tracked with a laser tracker, and while the robot also records his positions where he thinks he is. And the laser tracker sees where he really is. And then we have a cloud of points with deviations pointing in any directions. And this we can use to calibrate the robot so that if the robot is going to the customer, the robot will not have any deviations or much, much smaller deviations than as if the robot is just taken from the production. This is a very valuable process, individual for each robot. So we can provide the highest precision also under load with our bigger robots. The safety measures is the second thing we are being asked very often because it's a part of the risk analysis. Each machine can fail. Yeah, this is a fact. The question is only how big is the risk that it fails, and if it fails, does the machine recognize it itself? In this way, we have a lot of detection technology, almost completely, entirely dual channel technology with respect to the encoders and resolvers and current and also brakes available. This enables our customer to have a faster development and a faster time to market. Of course, at KUKA, we have a dedicated team which supports our customers in the medical field. So for you, if you are a customer of KUKA, we have a faster time to market. And authorities, the TÜV, the DEKRA, the SGS, they all know KUKA already because we are a long-term supplier for the medical field. And if they see that somebody is using a KUKA in his medical product, it should be much easier as if he's using a robot which is only used for industry so far. Our portfolio of robots is, it's big. So starting from very small robots with 3 kilogram payload up to over a ton, much over a ton. And all these robots can be used in the medical field. But for all the other robots, we also have a lot of material and documentation, which helps you to go through the regulatories. 2 robots picked from the tree. So one robot on the left side is a Quantec Nano robot. It's a small robot, which is becoming more and more famous in the medical field because his working space is big enough. And for this, the robot isn't a huge robot like the robot I'm standing below here. So it is possible to move this into the OR on demand with a little stronger pallet jack, something like this, a cart. The accuracy is much below a tenth of a millimeter. The same with a bigger robot, the Quantec 2 with a KR300. It has a big workspace, a very big workspace, almost reaching to 3 meters. So you can move around an entire patient if you like, or you can put the patient on a couch, which is held by this robot. Also very accurate with an accurate model, much below than a tenth of a millimeter. And I don't want to forget to mention that these robots are available in an option that we don't have any semiconductors on the structure. So the robot is pretty much semiconductor-less. This makes them predestinated to be used in the radiation exposed environment. For example, radiation therapy or particle therapy, and the neutron therapy, the BNCT. So this is about our articulated robots. And now I have only the final slide, and this is about completely different robots. And this is about mobile robots. KUKA is also producing mobile platforms, AGVs, so autonomous guided vehicles, who drive around in, for example, in hospitals and supports the healthcare suppliers. So healthcare suppliers, they tell us all the time that they suffer from a lack of personnel, and that personnel is loaded with not care-related tasks. And in this business, we are together with our company Swisslog since over 30 years. And people, from my understanding, they don't need to push heavy food containers or garbage containers or whatever around the hospitals, because these containers become more and more heavy. And nobody likes to push a 400 kilogram container throughout the hospital. And our solution for this are mobile platforms and takes the load from the caring personnel. Here you see a photo of the HEV. It looks pretty simple, but it's a very intelligent device. You can install it in a hospital very easily. It can open the doors via Wi-Fi. It can use elevators and pick up a load at a position and precisely bring it to a target destination, for example, for delivering the lunch at exactly 12 o'clock in the ward. So no need to push these devices, these containers around and making the staff in the hospital happy. I want to admit that in Germany, it was a problem to finance this automation technology for a long time, because the hospital said this is something which has to be paid by the insurance. But now the German government has released funds of 8 billion euros so that the hospital can equip their hospitals with new technology. That's it for the presentation. I want to thank you very much. My name is Andreas Keibel. Here's my email address, andreas.keibel@kuka.com. You can come back to me at any time and I would be happy. Thank you.
Industrial Intelligence.